President Trump said last night on Air Force One that Chinese President Xi Jinping has agreed to let rare earth minerals and magnets flow back to the U.S. The president's comments coming a day after a phone call with the Chinese leader to try once again to resolve the recent trade tensions between the two countries. China previously stopped exports of minerals and magnets to the U.S. back in April, you may recall. Meantime, that disrupted supplies needed by the world's car makers, obviously, computer chip manufacturers, and yes, military contractors as well.
We're very far advanced on the China deal. We had to have clarification, and that's what we're really having the meeting about. We had a very good talk. I talked to President Xi for, I guess, more than 2 hours. We had a very good talk. It's a complicated deal, but it's a deal that's, bring us a lot of money and a lot of everything else, and we get along very well with President Xi and with China.
President Trump says negotiations on a possible China deal have advanced substantially, and he points to China's agreement to restart the flow of rare earth minerals as an example of that. And for more on this and the planned trade talks between the two countries on Monday, we want to bring in Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow Gordon Chang. Great to have you with us, Gordon, as always. I want to play a quick soundbite. This is Peter Navarro, and he basically says, when it comes to trade and this strategy with the U.S. and China, it's not a China problem, it's a world problem, and it's one that has to be addressed here and now. Listen to Peter Navarro, get your thoughts on the other side.
We will have deals. It takes time. Usually it takes months and years. In this administration, it's going to take more like days. We're on task and on target. All we want is fairness. We have the highest tariffs facing us in the world and the highest trade barriers. It's not a China problem, it's a world problem, and we're going to fix it because that's what President Trump does.
And therein lies the rub. People, frankly, Gordon, act like we're the only people on the planet that are trying to have new tariffs, when the fact is we've been hit by tariffs all over the planet for as long as I've been alive, and this is perhaps a rebalancing. Is that a fair way to look at how things are being negotiated?
That's a fair assessment. So, for instance, with the European Union, it's not just a question of tariffs, it's the non-tariff barriers. And that's true with China and true with a number of other countries as well. And the U.S. has generally had an open policy that we did not demand reciprocity. So Navarro is right. We need to have that reciprocity because this has not worked out well for the American people.
It's interesting, and I don't want to make it overly political, but it seemed to me that at least early on in the negotiations, Gordon, that there were a number of Democrats on Capitol Hill that seemed to make the argument that China was going to win this thing and we were going to really regret it and American consumers would be really hit hard. But it seems to me, and sort of watching it play out bit by bit, that the U.S. still has the stronger hand here. How would you assess that thought?
We have a far stronger hand. Got to remember that China's right now, its economy is failing. It's in a deflationary spiral. The country's unhappy. You see protests, workers burning down their factories. And a lot of people in the U.S., they don't see that, so they don't take that into account. But yes, we are the far stronger society by almost all the metrics.
The other problem for China is you can't sort of export your way out of a problem if your number one destination for exports is simply raising tariffs and frankly saying, we don't need everything that you're sending out there. You can try to dump it in other markets in, say, Southeast Asia and try to circumvent. But I think the tariffs, the way they're lining up, Gordon, may actually counteract that attempt by Beijing.
Yes. Well, first of all, the other markets around the world are not big enough to accept the surge of exports from China, stuff that they can't sell us. But also, when President Trump puts tariffs on the Chinese goods, he's giving inspiration to others to also protect their economies, because nobody wants China to decimate local industries. So this is, as Navarro says, it's a global problem for China right now. And I think the Chinese are going to find that the path that they have is try to export to the world to get out of their local problems isn't going to work because the world is not big enough for all of China's products.
Do you have high expectations or low expectations for Monday's chats?
I have high expectations for meaningless comments from both sides. But remember, the Chinese violated the May 12th agreement with us. Part of that agreement was that China agreed to remove all of the non-tariff barriers that they had put in place after April 2nd. And this ban on the exports of rare earths was something that should have been removed immediately. So I don't think that China is going to comply with any new agreement that comes out of London on Monday.
And even if they do say they will, they have a long track record of violating the agreements that they've made. Lastly, in the 30 seconds or so we have left, a couple of Chinese nationals accused of smuggling dangerous agroterrorism fungus into the U.S. This is a real shocker, frankly, and could be an absolute catastrophe. Your thoughts on what has happened, and obviously, fortunately, these people were caught.
This is part of a years-long effort. In 2020, China exported seeds to the U.S. to Americans in all 50 states, unsolicited. We saw this again this year with Temu, the online Chinese retailer, sending seeds into the U.S. This is part of an attempt to plant invasive species and a part of this attack on U.S. agriculture. This fungus, this was a weapon of mass destruction. This was an attack on the United States of America. We need to treat this with far more seriousness than we have so far.
You know what? And it took people a while, Gordon, to figure out that, fentanyl was an attack on our young people and things like this. These are real attacks. People think of wars as sort of, bullets and tanks. But listen, there are a number of ways to affect a war, and we are at war. When things like this happen, it becomes all the more clear each and every day. Gordon Chang, thank you so much. We appreciate your time on a Saturday. Have a great weekend.
You too, Kevin, and thank you so much.
Stay safe. Yes, sir. You do the same.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.